This lesson is part 2 of section 6.1, solving one-step inequalities. So today we're going to continue to solve and graph one-step inequalities just like we did in class today. Now the big idea here and for this lesson is that whenever we do something special, whenever we have to multiply or divide by a negative number, okay, so let's fill this in, by a negative number, we have to actually flip our inequality sign, okay? So let's practice that idea right here on problems 1 and 2. So in problem number 1, in order to get x alone, I have to divide by negative 2. Now because I'm dividing by a negative, okay, dividing by a negative, I need to make sure I flip the sign. Okay, so I'm going to flip this sign now when I solve for x. So this is going to cancel, leaves me with x. I'm going to flip that from the less than sign to a greater than sign, and 14 divided by negative 2 is negative 7. I'm going to go ahead and just graph this real quick. So we have on the number line here, we'll put a negative 7 to the right, we'll put a 0. We'll have an open circle and shaded to the right. Okay, so we need to make sure that we always flip the sign when we divide or multiply by a negative. Okay, now in example 2, to get the x alone, I have to get rid of negative 4. Okay, so this is x divided by negative 4. So to undo that, I need to multiply by negative 4 on both sides. Again, this time I am multiplying by a negative, which means I have to flip our sign again. Okay, so this will cancel out on the left-hand side, leaving me with just x. Now I'm going to flip that sign here to a less than or equal to sign, and 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So I end up graphing negative 8 and placing 0 again on the right-hand side here. Let's do a closed circle on negative 8, and we're going to shade to the left. Oops, shade to the left. Okay, so it's really important that we understand that we only have to flip the sign if we multiply or divide by a negative. So if we look at example 3 here, on this problem, to get the x alone, all we have to do is divide by 2. Okay, even though here we have x is less than negative 7, we don't actually have to flip the sign because we did not divide by a negative, right? This is positive, so we don't flip the sign. Okay, so don't flip when you don't have to. Just make sure you only flip when you divide or multiply by a negative. So our answer here, x is less than negative 7. We'll put negative 7, open circle, 0 on the right of that, and then we're going to shade to the left. Now in example 4, to get x alone, this time we'll just multiply by 4. Once again, we are not multiplying or dividing by a negative, even though our answer has a negative in it. That's okay. We didn't multiply by a negative, we multiplied by a positive 4, right? So we don't flip the sign here, we keep the sign the same way. So we're going to have negative 8 here, closed circle on the negative 8, shaded all to the right. Alright, we've got 2 more problems now. For number 5, this time to get x alone, I need to subtract 3 on both sides. When I subtract 3 on both sides, I end up with x is greater than negative 7. Once again, this is not multiplying or dividing. Even though it's a negative 3, I'm not multiplying, I'm not dividing, right? Which means I don't have to flip the sign because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. Okay, so I have negative 7 here, open circle, shaded to the right. For our last problem here on number 6, in front of this x is an invisible 1, right? This is really negative 1. So to get the x alone, I have to divide by negative 1. Now when I do that, I'm left with x, and I have to flip this sign because in this problem, right, we divided by a negative. So this time, I have to make sure I flip that sign, and negative 2 divided by negative 1 on the right-hand side will give me positive 2. So here's my answer, x is less than or equal to 2. So I'll have 2 here, closed circle, let's put 0 right here, and we're going to shade, shade to the left. Okay? Alright, that's the end of the lesson, guys. Nice job. We'll practice this a bunch more tomorrow. I'll see you in class.